Hello and welcome. I'm Jasper and this is the PBandJ Cast, where we explore careers and ideas through authentic conversations. I'm thankful for you investing time to help broaden perspective and joining me to probe into the roles that each profession plays in our everyday world. I hope this episode adds value to you. In part 1, Petra covers how after 20 years, she's still in awe of her work as a zookeeper. Tips for pet owners, the difference between slapping rhinos on the butt and staying alive looking after tigers, and becoming Macgyver on the job. If this isn't your jam, go straight to part 2 for Petra's insights on taking care of some of the most endangered species on the planet, conservation, ethics, and what to know before you visit a zoo. Hello and welcome, I'm Jasper and this is the PBandJ Cast, where we explore careers, ideas, and authentic conversations. I'm thankful for you investing time to help broaden perspective and joining me in the journey as we appreciate the process of finding and adding value. Today, I have Petra, who is a zookeeper.
That is correct.
That is correct. Cool. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for having me today.
No worries. In preparation for this, I was YouTubing and searching up, day in my life and whatnot. And I didn't realize, and this is absolutely no insult, but I didn't realize just how competitive it was to actually be a zookeeper.
It's extremely competitive, especially here in Australia, where we're basically an island, as opposed to somewhere like the States or even Europe, where there's so many countries so close that are easy to get to, institutions that are easy to swap in between. We don't have that option here in Australia, and definitely on the West Coast, there's even less options as opposed to what's available on the East Coast.
How long have you been doing it for?
My first contracted job was in October 1998. So Here we are coming up to, 23 years, which is a little bit freaky for me. In that time, I've had a couple of kids, so I've had time off for maternity leave and raising them.
And no insults to your kids, because I know them, but who are harder to raise, animals or children?
Oh, that is an excellent question. Well, put it this way. I get annual leave and sick leave from my job. There is no annual leave or sick leave or overtime when you're a parent, as every parent will attest.
Gotcha. Reading in between the lines.
There is no time off from being a parent.
Okay, going on that topic then, what would you say is the biggest difference in terms of what you do as when you have to raise up and care for an animal?
Versus raising a child?
Yeah,
or
I guess so, because I think I hear from friends and whatnot that like pets become... I know they're not pets to you, but like there's a bond that
fur babies.
Yeah, fur babies.
Fur babies.
That there's a bond there, and they almost become like family.
Okay, that's a really good point. Perhaps it's the animals that I've worked with, and I think the fact that I have a family of my own and quite a bit going on outside of work. There are some passionate zookeepers who are very good at their job, who struggle to let go of the job come the knock-off time. It's something that I have definitely mastered because I have my own children at home. And as for the bond between the keeper and their animal, it varies between species and between individuals. Those people who look after higher intelligent species could potentially argue that they feel that they have a stronger bond with their animal. Please understand that I am not saying that animals are better than others. It seems that the more highly intelligent species definitely form a bond with their keepers. They show selectiveness to certain people. Certainly some people who go to bed worrying about the animals that they have in their care. I don't have that same outlook. I know that I've done the absolute best that I can during the day. And when I finish, I know that I've left them in the best possible way and I will see them again. I've always said on the really hot days and the really wet days, I never worry about my animals at work, but I worry about my animals at home. I don't worry about the animals at work, not because I know there's a dedicated team on site doing exactly that. But when I'm at work, there's nobody at home looking after my animals.
Yep.
In the zookeeping animal care industry, it's very easy to lose yourself in your job because it's a compassionate occupation. You're caring for something that potentially can't live without your care. And I think it's really easy to put everything into your work and just not be able to let go, because at the end of the day, if you break it down, it's a job, it's an occupation for all of us. It's also a passion, but it's still a job that finishes at a certain point. And I truly believe that if you can't let go, you're doing yourself a disservice.
No, I see where you're coming from. I also think that if you can't switch off, then you also can't rejuvenate. And in the long term, you may not be doing the better job that you could be doing.
Agreed, because you're not having time to recharge yourself. So eventually your batteries have to give out.
I think you've mentioned it, but viewers won't know that you also have quite a few animals at home yourself.
I do.
How do you then switch? Like you pretty much have a mini zoo. So you're coming from a zoo to go to another zoo.
You know, I think about that every single day.
Okay.
The zookeeper Petra doesn't switch off when she gets home initially.
Yep.
Luckily, I have a very supportive husband and 2 brilliant kids who willingly, you know, chip in. As a zookeeper, you work a lot of weekends and public holidays. So anybody looking for a Monday to Friday job, do not be a zookeeper. Luckily, you know, on those hot days, if I'm working on a weekend, I've just got to shoot a text to the husband or to the kids. Can you, give the guinea pigs an ice block? Does a dog have enough cool water? Have you checked the cat's water? I probably have very high standards as to the care of my own animals at home. Everybody knows to fill all the water bowls and water dishes to the absolute top. You know, you might fill it up before you leave and you come home and the bucket or the bowl sitting at about half. That's your animal's routine. You come home one day and it's sitting below half. You go, okay, do that for a couple of days and then it's time to investigate. Is there an issue with the animal just because you know your animal's pattern? It's what we do at work. It's a labor of love. I've always loved animals. I've never known a time when I haven't been obsessed with animals. So the grand plan as a youngster was to be a vet, didn't quite get into vet school and just kind of fell into zookeeping. Okay. And I feel that I've been very fortunate to have had this passion literally my whole life, that I just wanted to play with animals and get paid for it. And to have actually made that dream come true. I've never quite understood people who haven't had that same sort of drive. And I've never been one of these people that's said, well, I actually don't know what I want to do with my life. Right. I've been really fortunate that I've had that direction and then to actually make it happen in a very competitive industry. I truly feel fortunate. After 20 odd years, I still walk around work going, I can't believe I work here. I actually work here. Still, just if I've got a quiet moment, I'll look around the grounds and go, wow. I'm still humbled and appreciative of what I do. And again, I think that's kept me sane.
I think that's quite inspiring as well.
You're very kind.
No, honestly, no, it is because I have a lot of different friends that have entered the workplace and go, oh boy, what have I done? Yeah. And for you to not just be in the first year and have that pay high, money, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But 20 plus years later going, this is amazing, exactly what you described. Like, why do you think that's the case? And why do you think others can lose that?
I'm just trying to think how honest I can be.
Be as honest as you like.
Be as honest as I like?
Yes,
all right.
please.
So what I have noticed over the years, I've always loosely classified people who come through into 2 groups. There are those who want to play with animals and get paid for it. And then my second group is those who want to save the world.
Okay.
And a lot of the time, both groups of people end up at the zoo. And when I first meet people, I can't always tell who those people are.
Okay.
After talking with them, finding out what their passion is, the people who want to save the world very quickly become disillusioned by working in a captive animal facility because you are limited as to what you can do. Okay. At the end of the day, a zoo or a wildlife park is only so big. And generally the people who want to save the world, they want to make a difference to the animals that are not within those walls.
Gotcha.
So long term, a zoo is not a good place for them, and it definitely plays on their mental health. So I feel that's one of the main things that affects people's levels of passion, commitment and drive, and that spark that gets you out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
The other thing that I feel has an effect is how high up the level that people want to climb. Yep. So most people come in and they start as a lowly, bottom grunt, bottom keeper.
Yep.
And of course there's a career ladder, you can go up to, a level 2 keeper or a senior keeper and then supervisor and then curator and then director and then running the zoo. You're the head honcho of the zoo. The further you go up that ladder, the less it becomes about why you got into the industry in the first place. So generally people come into the industry because they like animals, right? They want to work with animals. But the higher you go up the level, the less it becomes about the animals and the more people managing. There is definitely still some animal component in there. You'll have a hand in which animals come in and out of the zoo, any breeding that's happening, long-term plans, that sort of thing. But ultimately, it's less time on the ground and it's more time in an office. And I think what I've chosen to do is I've gotten myself to a certain level where I am happy at the level that I am. I'm not at a decision-making level. I'm just below that. And that is where I want to sit, because I didn't get into this job to manage people. I got into this job to work with the animals. I made peace years ago with who I work for.
Yep.
So I accept a lot of the decisions that I made. I may not agree with them, but I can accept them because I've deliberately put myself in a position where I can't fight those decisions. And ultimately, my workplace is a business that needs to make money. And it has to do whatever it can do to make money to stay afloat, to pay for the animal feed, to pay for their care, to pay for our wages. And those decisions may clash with my morals and my values. But I've made the decision to step back. And I think that ability to let go and just nod and just go, well, I think is what keeps my passion going, because I don't feel defeated. Other people may disagree. Over 20 years, I've seen the battles that people pick, and sometimes they're not the right ones. I've seen some people that have ended up, mentally in some really bad places. And I've seen people absolutely thrive as well. People who've just run with it, and they've picked certain battles and they've managed to get what they want. Though obviously they haven't managed to be able to get everything that they want.
Yes.
And you've just got to pick those wins. Again, does that?
It does make sense. And I think you're spot on in terms of like the management side of things. Like the higher up you go, oftentimes you actually have less of the groundwork with the people, even in almost any job. Yeah.
As soon as like for example, business being able to decide how you want to do it. Along with that comes managing staff, managing your equipment, all the stuff that normally, after you've put your pavers in the ground, see you later, sayonara, I'm going home now.
Yeah. But I do think that there are people definitely that have climbed, and it's still about whatever that is, but it's about it from a different perspective. Whereas in management, it's still about the animals.
It is.
But then it's about making sure the animals are then looked after because you are looking after the keepers or something like that.
Yep. They just have other factors to consider.
Yes.
All right, so we want to look after the animals in this way, but that way could be too cost prohibitive.
Correct. And
so there has to be some sort of happy medium. And I'm the person that goes, well, all right, this is what I've got. I have to make this work. Other people would disagree and say that maybe I settle too easily, but I'm still going home with my head held high, looking forward to work the next day. So
that's a win in the long term for you.
I think so.
Bogged down. No, that's fair enough.
So.
Yeah. Because if you then, like you're saying, you'd rather have such a awe and respect for what you do than try to fight every battle and then be bogged down. And in the end, who actually gets to look after the animals?
Who actually wins?
Yeah.
It's we have these conversations at work quite a bit.
Yeah, right.
Because mainly between those who want to climb the ladders and those who don't. So this discussion does come up.
Interesting. There you go. So you're ready for preparing for this.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Over 20 odd years.
What exactly is your role? Because you said there's bottom, obviously not a bottom feeder after
not
20
quite,
plus.
Not quite. All right. So in my workplace, we have level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4 keepers.
Okay.
So level 1s are the ones, this is your first job. I see level 2s. The level 2s are my bricks and mortar, which is what I am. Yeah. The level 2s hold it together, sort of act a little bit as a mentor as the level 1s.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who enable the level 3. So the senior keepers are still out on the ground picking up poop, because if anybody has any illusions to what we do, the core of our job is picking up animal poop. Anywho, so the level 3s still do the grunt work, but they're also doing a little bit of animal management, a little bit of people management. They write up the routines. They help the supervisors, and the supervisors filter down to them. And the level 3s are kind of in charge of the level 2s and the level 1s. So the level 1s are still learning and still applying their trade and still figuring it out. The level 2s should have it, and they're the reliable ones. So they're the ones that in theory, the level 3s can say, can you go to A, B, and C? And the level 2s go, yep, and it's done to the correct standard and the correct way, whereas the level 1s still may need their hands held.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. how many different, can you say, like level 4 is more like a supervisory type thing? How many different supervisors would there be?
In my particular workplace, there are 4 supervisors, according just to the areas that they work. So the zoo's roughly divided into 4 areas plus actually kind of like a satellite area. So I guess that's a fifth supervisor. So under each supervisor would be maybe 15 people.
Okay.
There's actually anywhere between 5 and 6 people on at any given day.
For one particular area?
For one particular area.
Cool. And which area are you, like what type of zookeeper are you?
As to which animals do I look after?
Yeah.
I look after the non-Australian animals. So basically carnivores and ungulates that don't live in Australia. I've been working a lot with the tiger, the red panda, the sun bear, the otters, and the binturongs.
Cool.
And the red-eared sliders, which get sort of a little bit of a mention just because they're a pest species and they're invasive, but that's not their fault. And I had these guys as pets many, many, many years ago. Yeah, right. And I absolutely love them. And my cousin's dog ate them, but we won't talk about that.
Okay. I think I.
But anyway, they got eaten. These things happen.
Fair enough.
Hey, this is a soundbite interruption. If PB&J has helped in any way, make sure to stay connected via social media in the description below.
Because you talked about how, I know you don't like this term, but I don't know any other term, but intelligent, not as intelligent. Wouldn't a tiger be on a higher intelligent side of things?
For about 12 years, I worked with Australian animals, and I always preferred the kangaroos and the wallabies over the Tasmanian devils. Basically, I like to work with animals that aren't going to kill me and eat me. So anything that's a herbivore, but I've always liked hoof stock. So when I say that giraffes most likely less intelligent than a tiger, I mean it with great love and respect, because they're basically just like big cows or big sheep. Gotcha. They'll often stand there with their ears in a perfectly horizontal position, chewing the cud, and you can see the lights are on, but there is really nobody home. Now, saying that, they can be taught to do amazing things. So we had a young giraffe calf. New Zealand has extremely strict quarantine rules, and we needed to microchip this giraffe because they're not routinely microchipped from birth, because basically you can tell a giraffe apart from the rest of the herd.
Okay, cool.
Wild. Because even though she grew up in captivity, these aren't tame animals. So that's one of the really common misconceptions. The number of times when I've been cleaning windows in a lion or a tiger enclosure, people are like, so where's the lion at? And I'm like, well, not in here, because they will kill me. Probably slowly. They may or may not eat me, but it's going to be a slow death because they haven't honed their hunting skills. And there are some animals you can get closer to, which is probably why I like the herbivores. Like, I do slap the rhino on the butt as he heads out for the day. There's a lot of contact with the herbivore species. A scratch under the kangaroo's chin in the morning when you're doing your head count.
And you don't get sucker punched in the face?
Don't get sucker punched in the face. No, there are certain individuals that not to scratch under the chin because you will get sucker punched in the face. But I can assure you, I don't scratch a tiger under the chin. Anyway, going back to this giraffe calf, we taught her to walk into a raceway where we confined her, where we comfortably got her to stand and collected blood. So we were able to do that.
Yeah, right.
We could definitely do that with a tiger as well, but I would still consider a prey species, like an animal that hunts, I would consider to have a higher intelligence than an animal that doesn't need to. There's just more going on in a predator. I mean, I always say to people, like tigers versus lions. So lions are a social carnivore. They're big, they're ballsy, they're in your face. You know exactly where the lions are, and they're not afraid to show themselves because they have backup of the pride, Tigers, solitary animal. So there's no one watching their back except themselves.
Right.
So when I'm looking for the tiger in the enclosure, I know darn well that when I finally find the tiger, he's seen me from the absolute get-go. And he's just put himself in a position where I will eventually find him. And then when I do, it's like, got ya. He could have nailed me at any time,
Then is it not safe?
I'm outside of the enclosure looking for him inside the enclosure.
Yeah.
But working with the tiger, you need to have your wits about you. And people die doing my job. About 5 or 6 years ago, there was a very experienced keeper over in New Zealand who was killed by one of the tigers.
Wow.
To this day, I do not know what the actual situation was. Yeah. We make mistakes. We are human. I mean, recently, just before COVID or during COVID, in Shoalhaven Zoo, the 2 lions, so she was mauled. They were young. They were only 18 months old, and I truly believe that's the only reason why she survived. So they wouldn't have been full weight, wouldn't have been full size, and at 18 months probably still playing a little bit, as opposed to having that I'm going to get you instinct. So
what would be like the standard precautions, if there are any standard precautions, to keep safe?
there are many safety protocols put into place. Yep. Every animal has a set of, or every animal's not the right word, every night quarter and exhibit has standard operating procedures, so SOPs we call them, and it breaks it down to the nitty gritty as to how you move yourself with the animal in mind. So I want to say that 99% of the time we are not in the same space as the animal. Yep. And the night quarters and the yards are set up so that we can move animals around without having to put ourselves in the animal space, so that we can safely lock away an animal so that we can go into the enclosure and do what we need to do. So definitely with the carnivores. So with the carnivores, I'm talking about lion, tiger, hyena, painted dog, sun bear, anything with the really big claws and the really big teeth. If you walk into a zoo or an animal park and you can see the keeper in the enclosure, I can guarantee you that the animal is not in there. And this isn't just reserved to anything with big teeth and big claws. Animal parks, their safety protocols vary. Yeah. Generally, depending on whether it's a private zoo versus a government institution, which probably has more to answer to and more protocols in place.
Which is a better thing, I'd assume? Or
I think so.
Okay.
Government institutions generally pay better as well, better working conditions as a general rule. I haven't spent that much time in private institutions, captive animal facilities.
If I didn't get anything out of that, which I did, don't worry.
I feel like I've gone completely off tangent.
No, that's fine. If I need to pick someone to like in the wild with, if I get stuck in like the Aussie outback or whatnot, so you're my go-to, yeah?
Well, can I survive out there? I'm not entirely sure. I could potentially identify some of the species and tell you which ones would be safe to eat.
Okay.
And which ones may be vaguely tasty to eat. But yeah, maybe.
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 On that note, then, aside from knowing how to look after animals very well, which full bottle, I will note that as well.
I hope so.
And be more observant as to just to put those parameters in place so that you can observe differences in patterns.
Yes. You get to know your animals.
Yeah. What other skills do you think that you have, being a zookeeper?
You learn to be Macgyver. You learn to fix things with cable ties and gaffer tape. Gaffer tape fixes everything from hoses to work boots that are falling apart. Another thing that I've always said too is that zookeepers and those who look after animals, we're all animal people.
Yep.
So we're not necessarily people. So little
have you reached your limit with me yet?
You're a different category, and you know that. But it's interesting how little niggles suddenly turn into massive molehills. Okay. Now I can walk into an enclosure, look at a mob of 20 kangaroos, and go, that one there's a problem. And you might be with me and go, well, it looks like it's all right. And I'm like, no. Do you see how the angle of the head? Do you see how this? And you might just go, I'm just looking at a kangaroo. And I'm like, no, there's a problem with that animal.
Gotcha.
But put me in a room with 20 people and I've got no hope. No hope of reading body language. Little issues with zookeepers turn into these massive things that require mediation and just all this sort of stuff. But geez, we know our animals to the absolute T.
Wow. So just highly observant and
highly in tune to animal behavior. I would say that we learn patience, but I'm incredibly impatient. You work by yourself a lot of the time.
Yep.
Your time management skills are second to none as a general rule, because you usually have a lot of work to do in a very small amount of time. I mean, we're not just animal care attendants. We do things like we do basic maintenance on enclosures. So we'll fix leaking pipes, we'll clean windows, we'll figure out, we can cobble things together. One of the senior keepers wanted to make a new behaviour enrichment item, which is the fancy way of saying toy for the red pandas. So she spent a crafternoon with cable ties, bamboo and shea cloth, and she made a whole bunch of platforms called the projects. So they'll dig holes, they'll create things, they can make things. I don't have a creative bone in my body, but when someone takes time out to make those sort of things or get a project underway, all the day-to-day stuff needs to be done. That's me. I like the day-to-day. I like the routine. I like with that. You certainly learn communication rules. You learn how to be pretty flexible because when they start, they'll say, okay, you're going to learn with person A today. After a couple of days, you'll learn with person B. After a couple of days, you'll learn with person C. They will all have their own way of doing things. So you learn really quickly. Yes, excellent. That's a really good word. You learn really quickly that when you're working with person A, you do things person A's way. When you're working with person C, you do things the way person C likes to have it done. So you just end up being that sort of flexible sort of way.
Gotcha.
As a zookeeper too, besides observation skills, you learn to get really good at cleaning dishes, how to scrub a floor, and how to use a rake and a hose. The drain is never put at the lowest point. 9 times out of 10, the drain is put at the highest point. So you learn how to, we call it directional hosing. I can make a pool drain that has its drain, like, not at the point where you would think it is. You learn how to sweep water.
You guys are like jack of all trades.
Yes, that's a really good way of putting it. Master of none.
And, if I needed an arts and craft tip, I would go find a zookeeper. If I needed to fix something, just not me.
If you need the dishes done in the meantime and your house cleaned, I'll do that. You go do the crafty stuff with somebody else.
What I found quite interesting, I think was the first thing you said when you mentioned about you can see one small thing and you can notice how that can then, I guess, snowball effect. When you mentioned, you're just seeing a kangaroo, but I saw this, and I think that this is going to lead to this, this is going to lead to this.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, so it's like you guys have this also like forward-looking intuition.
That comes with experience. So, okay, most of us have a tertiary qualification under our belt, rural science, conservation biology, ecotourism, something like that. Anybody level 2 and above will also have what we call our zookeeping certificate, which has now changed names to the Cert 3 in captive animals. Okay. So that's our trade qualification. But to really learn, you need to work with an experienced keeper. Like I remember I used to work with this senior zookeeper and I learned more from him in 5 minutes just talking to him than I learned from any book. So if you were with me for the first day, for example, we'll go look at this kangaroo, and I might notice that it's just a little bit paunchy in the lower jaw, and I would go, right, that's going to be a problem. And as soon as you've got a sick animal, you've got to get those medications into them, and that's when it gets really fun. It's actually really funny because when my oldest was really young, she was under 2, and I had to get some antibiotics into her. And I'm like, how do you get medication into an orangutan? You squirt it into apple juice. Brilliant. Come here, child. Got the antibiotic, squirted apple juice, down the hatch, done, sweet. So yeah, orangutans and a lot of primates can be really easy to medicate. You just crush the pill into a favourite item, squish it into middle banana, down the hatch, done. So you wouldn't have known that as a brand new keeper, that the soft, swelling of the jaw could lead to lumpy jaw, which could lead to death. And then you've got the situation of now you need to treat this animal. So you need to be able to identify that animal. And eventually that lumpiness is going to go. So you can't go, oh yeah, that's the one with the lumpy jaw. What if another animal comes up with a lumpy jaw? What if the swelling goes down but the medication continues? So you need to be able to identify that animal. And you might look to me and go, well, that's a kangaroo. And I'm like, okay, but look at the top of its left ear. See that little white spot? Nobody else has that white spot. So learning from other keepers is really the way to go. And everybody will teach you something different. So someone else might go, oh, I don't look for that white spot. I just know that she's got a notch missing out of her tail. It's actually interesting talking to people how they look for their different distinguishing features when you're dealing with a social animal.
Right. So a lot of pattern recognition as well.
So you need to play to people's strengths and weaknesses. Yeah. I know I can't identify the otters. I need to weigh them. I get my workmate. Hey, you can identify the otters. Can you please help me? Or you've got people who've got a really strong relationship with the animal. You need to do something with the animal. You rope that person into helping you.
I feel like I just got a lecture on.
Sorry.
No, that's good. It's very interesting to know as well. Like now for me to also just to be more observant in that regard, because I wouldn't know otherwise. That's a wrap for part 1, diving into the role itself. Head over to part 2 for sliced up topical insights, sometimes toasty controversies, and spicy industry secrets.